This is the Gerry Callahan Show.
Well, it is Friday, June 27th, a very big day in this country. I think it should be a national holiday when you think about it. There's very few days in our history, in the history of this country, more consequential than June 27th, 2024. Where were you when it happened? I was sitting right here watching it, just giddy, enjoying the hell out of it. It was the end of the cover-up. It was the beginning, really, of the greatest comeback in American political history. When you think about it, everything changed on this day, on this night, when the media, when the Democrats could no longer protect that empty husk of a man who was pretending to be president for 4 years. It was over on this day. They were doing their best to carry him over the finish line, but it all ended on this night, June 27th. And essentially, our country changed. It's hard to imagine if indeed he weren't an empty husk, if he weren't a dementia patient, if he did hold his own in this debate, if he did indeed just remain upright. That's all he had to do, and he couldn't do it. We would have today in this country, if he'd managed to pull this out, if the media had carried him over the finish line, if he'd won a second term, there'd be another 10 million illegal aliens in this country. They would still be running wild, free, committing crimes. We'd still have an open border. We would still have all the waste and fraud in the federal government. We'd still have a nuclear weapons program in Iran. With the stock market probably wouldn't be close to hitting all-time highs, just guessing here, but it all changed on this day. They couldn't cover it up any longer. They tried, but on this day, he melted down. And I think an overlooked aspect of this was the way Donald Trump handled it. Trump deserves credit. Trump stayed out of the way. It's hard for him. He wants to dominate every event, every debate. But he did exactly what he had to do. He let this pathetic shell of a man, this corpse, this cadaver, just melt down in front of the country, in front of the world, and it was over, essentially, for Joe Biden. The charade was over. The cover-up was over. For 3.5 years, the media was deeply invested in covering up, lying on behalf of Joe Biden. Jake Tapper and Joe Scarborough and all the rest looked you in the eye for 3 years and told you he was fine. This is the best Biden ever. Jake Tapper was there running cover for him, claiming he had a stutter. We all knew the truth. We saw it on a daily basis, and then it all was on display for the world. Let's just look back at perhaps one of the most significant moments in American political history. Here it was.
He was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
That was perfect. That was perfect. Trump did the right thing. Didn't step on it. Just let him spiral. That's what he had to do. When I was looking back at this morning, see if you can find this one, when he said women are getting raped by their sisters. That's not one that people mention often. Mostly it's about, we beat Medicare. I think that was the moment it all ended. The candidacy, Joe Biden's candidacy, the cover-up, the scheming and scamming and coordinating with the media, with other Democrats, pretending, telling you, don't believe your eyes. He's tip-top. He's fine. We can't keep up. I think it all ended when he said, we finally beat Medicare. I'm not sure what he was trying to get to. I think he was trying to say we beat Big Pharma, which of course is a lie. Everything he said in this debate was a lie, but we beat Medicare. And Trump just looks incredulously and says, yeah, you did. This was perfect. This is the end. This was the end of the pretend presidency. This was the end of all the lies, all the cover up, all the hiding him. They hid him for the campaign in 2020. So the hiding him, the protecting him, the putting the cone of protection over him lasted 4 years, but it ended on this night 1 year ago today. Here was the moment, I believe, it all ended. Go ahead.
All those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
That was our president for 3.5 years. They wanted you to believe he could go another 4 years. You should never believe these people again. They're all liars. Never believe another word Joe Scarborough tells you, or George Stephanopoulos, or Margaret Brennan, or Jake Tapper. They're all liars. This is where it all came to light. This is where it ended for them. The mainstream media is dead for a number of reasons. They've been lying to you daily since Trump came on the scene about everything, about the Russia hoax, the Fine People hoax, the suckers and losers hoax, the laptop, the bombing of Iran's nuclear sites, everything. All they do is lie. And this is the most incredible example, the most illuminating. Here is what they did for 3.5 years. They looked at that man. We showed you clips every day of this guy. We showed you the condition he was in. You saw him calling out dead people and shaking hands with imaginary people and wandering off into the Brazilian rainforest. You saw him stumbling, falling upstairs, downstairs, everything. It was all there on display. And what they did was a whole Baghdad Bob thing. Don't believe that. He's tip-top. He's better than ever. They went all in because they had to stop Trump. And today we should celebrate because they failed. They failed. They couldn't protect him. He had to go up there by himself on stage. No help, no protection, no auto pen. Just Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And they were predicting that he would win because, he's beaten him before. Joe Biden put out a video, which we've played a few times, saying, come on, Donald, I'll beat you twice. I'll beat you again. How do Wednesdays look? And this was a month later. And after this, you were told he had a cold. The Democrats tweeted out that Joe Biden won the debate. That's how bad it got. And then, of course, do we have any more highlights from this before we get to Dr. Jill?
Yeah, this is the one that you were just referring to. About
this is what I was doing on June 27th all night. I was laughing, hysterically laughing. This was so satisfying, knowing the media, the Democrats, the Biden crime family, knowing they were all being exposed. And I was applauding Trump for just letting it happen. It was perfect. Of course, he didn't drop out for 3.5 more weeks, but he was done because everyone got to look at him. He couldn't run a campaign, let alone run a country for 4 more years. The guy wanted us to believe until this day that he could do the job until he was 86. A guy who was in the throes of dementia at the age of 78, 79, thought he could do the job, wanted you to believe he could do the job till he was 86. It is the biggest lie in American political history, the biggest cover-up, and as a result of this meltdown, the best comeback in American political history. Because on this day, it became inevitable. To all the people who did everything they could to stop Trump, it became inevitable and obvious that they did not stop him. They failed. All the indictments, all the assassination attempts, the raids of Mar-a-Lago, all of it was for naught, and they knew it on this day. Tom Friedman from the New York Times, just a Democrat stooge, one of the worst, said he was weeping during this debate. A grown man, an old man, was in tears because he knew they failed. They failed to prop him up and stop the evil orange man. Here's another clip if you forget.
Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters. It's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to reach them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
That I forgot about that one. The Medicare clip gets all the credit, gets all the attention, but that's a lot of women being raped by their in-laws, their brothers, their spouses, and their brothers and sisters. I knew there was going to be a lot of issues covered in this debate, this 90-minute debate, I believe. I didn't know we were going to get to that rampant systemic problem of women being raped by their sisters. Thank God. That's, to me, that's more important than climate change. It's just as big a problem. The president of the United States, the 46th president, was rambling on about women being raped by their sisters. And this, to me, this could be my favorite part. I don't even remember this, Ironhead. We were watching it live. Then we did a show, and we got our biggest numbers ever. The numbers were massive because people were just looking for a post-game show. But this was after the debate, and I was wondering this, like the spin room they have where all the media were just crestfallen. They were all in tears. They were all depressed because they knew it was over, and they knew they don't have a lot of credibility left, but they couldn't stand there and say, yeah, Joe Biden, he fought him to a draw, or Joe Biden held his own, or Joe Biden exceeded expectations. That's what they wanted to tell you. But even those liars, even those shills couldn't do it. It was just not possible. But it was up to Dr. Jill, the evil first lady who forced her husband into this position. If any decent spouse, a decent woman, would have never encouraged him to run again, but she's drunk with power. She knew he couldn't do it for 4 more years. She knows he could barely make it through his term. It's amazing he actually made it to January 20th, but she knew he got trounced. She knew it was over at this moment, but man, she was going to keep on lying. And she thought this was going to rally the troops, but this is the most demeaning thing. There's been a lot of moments where Joe Biden's been treated like a child, like a toddler, by the people, the Politburo who surround him. But this could be the most revealing moment. She is there and she knows he's out of it. And she just treats him like a child who made it through, like a 5th grader who just made it through the school play without stumbling or what lost the spelling bee, but gave it his best. Watch this condescending moment from this absolutely horrible woman. Good.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Lie!
He's just sitting there. He's like, yeah, Mommy says I did good. I did good. You know who the only person who didn't realize what a disaster this was? He didn't. Because he's so out of it. He doesn't know. I mean, he's been standing up there just kind of going through the motions for 3.5 years at this point. He didn't realize it was over or he would have dropped out the next day. He went a week later, gave a real loud, passionate speech and said, I'm staying in the race. I'm not going anywhere. And like 3 days later, he bows out when they threatened to use the 25th Amendment on him. And Obama and Jeffries and Schumer all got together and said, Joe, you got to go. And then on July 21st, I believe, he finally bowed out of the race. it was too late to have a primary. Kamala had 120 days or whatever it was and $1.5 billion, but she was just as bad a candidate. So it was over for them, and Trump was inevitable. This is a tragic day for the media, for the Democrats, and a great day for the country. I can't imagine either Biden or Kamala at this point with everything going on in the world. It is that administration, those 4 years, will be looked back as a dark stain in American history. Forget the fact that he was as corrupt as any politician ever, that he was making millions from foreign countries with his 20 LLCs and his burner phones and his encrypted messages and the scams he was running to get rich. Forget all that. He was a terrible president. He's a terrible guy, a terrible father, a terrible person. And we had to endure that for 4 years. And now Trump has one objective, and it's cleaning up the mess, whether it's the border, foreign affairs, the economy, crime, you name it. Everything Trump is doing is cleaning up the mess, repairing the damage done by that man, or I should say the people around him, because that man was clueless. He was out of it. We know it. We're learning more every day about the people, the dark forces, nefarious forces who were in control of the White House, in control of the auto pen, were signing legislation and signing pardons. Joe Biden, I heard James Comer say this last night on Newsmax. He said other presidents have used auto pens for, kids who became Eagle Scouts and they get a letter from the president. But usually when the auto pen was in use, the president was somewhere else. He was traveling. He was out of the country. He was back home. He said, Joe, they used the auto pen many, many times while Biden was in the White House. So he was down the hall taking a nap, or he was, watching Wheel of Fortune with his bowl of, chocolate chip. And they were signing things. They were pretending to be him signing legislation while Joe was in the White House. That alone is quite an indictment of the way business was conducted. Yes, no, the Hunter Biden pardon, that's real. Joe Biden made sure he had put his actual signature on one thing, and it was the pardon of his degenerate, coke-addled son. Everything else, auto pen, handled by Dr. Jill or Ron Klain or one of these other people who are now going to have to answer some questions. And Comer and the Oversight Committee had better pursue this to the end. That cannot stand. We can't sit here and say, yeah, well, we're done. Let's move on. No, we're not moving on. We need to know who was running the country. It's kind of a big deal. It was a massive scandal, and it all blew up on this day. 1 year ago, June 27th. God, I had a blast that night. That was just so much fun. So let's look back fondly. Let's chime in on the chat line today. It is Friday. We'll read some of the comments. Ironhead will put aside some of the good ones, and we'll get to that before we wrap this up. We got to get back into this pending disaster in New York City. I don't think people realize just how frightening this is, how scary this is for the biggest city, our most important city. We have a communist, a Muslim extremist communist who wants to defund the police, close prisons. We've gone down the list. He's not a capitalist. He's not. We're going to elect the mayor of New York City, the economic engine that drives this country, much of the world. And we might elect a guy who doesn't believe in capitalism. I don't think people realize just how frightening it is. And I know they don't, because most of the people who voted for him are just stupid. That's a fact. As the Babylon Bee pointed out, Democrats find the key to winning elections: promise free stuff to stupid people. And that's what happened in New York. A man, a Muslim immigrant who's only been a citizen for 7 years, is promising free stuff to stupid people, and they're not even consider the consequences. We'll get to that. And a moment we have to get to, because I just love this moment. On Joe Rogan's podcast, I would say the whole climate change scam, it sort of came to an end when Bernie Sanders and Joe Rogan debated climate change. It was great. We'll get to that and more. But first,
Excuse me.
if you've ever searched for your name or address on Google, it's shocking to find how many results have your personal information, and it's not by chance. Data brokers and people search sites, collect your personal information, your name, address, phone number, financial info, income, and hundreds of other records. They sell it and share it publicly without your consent. But Incogni is here to put an end to that. It hunts down these unethical sites and gets your info removed from the places that expose your private information. You don't have to email anyone, fill out forms, or jump through hoops. They handle the entire process for you. Incogni is also continually monitoring if your data is put back into these databases, requesting repeated removals. This way, it keeps them off there forever. So you get fewer spam calls, spam emails, and you get more peace of mind. And best of all, you can cancel anytime, and they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can get it completely risk-free. Right now, you get 60% off an annual plan by going to incogni.com and use code word Callahan. That's incogni, incogni.com/Callahan, and use the code word Callahan at checkout. You get 60% off and protect your data for an entire year. You know, we've gone over the list of insane policy positions of the next mayor of New York City. Likely, I think the odds, check the poly market odds for me, Ironhead. Last I checked, there was 75% chance that Zoran Mamdani would be the mayor of New York City in November or in January, whenever he takes office. And there are people thinking, oh yeah, we've been through some crazy politicians, some crazy mayors. We lived through Bill de Blasio. I mean, we could survive this. I don't think people are understanding just how ominous this threat is. This guy has a big smile. He's glib. He talks. He jokes. He's really, really cool on his TikTok videos, and he did a good job of being everywhere and using social media and connecting with stupid people who want free stuff. What are the odds now? 74%. Oh, good. They're coming down. 74% chance he will be the next mayor. 18% Eric Adams. It all depends on Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa. Those two guys, if they are patriots at all, have to bow out. They have to quit the race and endorse Eric Adams. He's our only chance to prevent a Marxist, Muslim extremist from taking office 25 years after 9/11. We said we'd never forget. Well, apparently we forgot. This is a man who denied Israel's right to exist, who chanted globalize the intifada, who is got a big smile again, but is got some real scary proposals and ideas. Here he is talking. He wants to eliminate prisons too, not just to fund the police. He doesn't want to put people in prison. Now, when you think of New York and how things are going in New York, do you think we have too many people in prison? We have too many cops enforcing the law? They're making too many arrests? I can't imagine living in New York right now and just trying to live your life knowing that your next mayor wants to eliminate the cops and stop putting people in prison and just let them go. That was a problem. It is a problem with Alvin Bragg. It'll get infinitely worse if this guy takes office. Here he is talking about how violent crime, that's not really violence. You know, violence is putting people in prison. That's the mindset of this lunatic. Go ahead.
Oftentimes, we've even found as legislators, when we go into these courts, the term violent crime is even used when people are stealing packages. Violent crime is even used when people are accused of burglary and there happens to be a housing unit in that same dwelling. So violence is an artificial construction. And we have to be very clear on what is happening here with these district attorneys. That is violence. That is violence at the highest level.
So violence, according to him, is the district attorney prosecuting crimes and putting people in prison. Now, if New York has any kind of problem, it's not enough people in prison. We've seen it with no cash bail, with Alvin Bragg refusing to prosecute like half the felonies. It's a big problem. He wants to make it much, much worse. That's what people voted for. I think one of the reasons he was so successful, that he beat Cuomo so bad, is people weren't engaged. They weren't paying attention. For the next 5 months, people have to pay attention. The media has to cover this because even liberal media people know how dangerous he is. They know how scary the thought of this guy actually taking control of New York City. So maybe if by November people wake up and pay attention and learn the issues and don't just vote on emotion and on his smile and don't just say he's young, he's fresh, he's something new. Well, if something new is a guy who wants to make grocery stores city owned, that's communism. That's not capitalism. It's so strange to me because for most of my life, we Americans could agree on one thing. It would be capitalism is good and communism or socialism is bad. That used to be understood. And here we are at this point in, again, our biggest city, a guy telling you capitalism is bad, socialism is good, and he's winning. He won 460,000 votes, not a big percentage when you consider the population, but he's the favorite, heavy favorite to beat whoever, Adams, Sliwa, Cuomo, and become mayor. And he says, I don't like capitalism in New York City. Here he is last night on CNN.
So when people say democratic socialist, right? And I'm curious what you think this means. I mean, do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism. And I think ultimately the definition for me of why I call myself a democratic socialist is the words of Dr. King decades ago. He said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism. There must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And that's what I'm focused on. Dignity and taking on income inequality. And for too long, politicians have pretended that we're spectators to that crisis of affordability. We're actually actors, and we have the choice to exacerbate it, like Mayor Adams has done, or to respond to it and resolve it, like I'm planning to do.
That is perfect. This is man uses. We're all God's children, except the Jews, and we all deserve dignity. So you know what we'll do? We'll raise taxes on the people who actually go to work and earn a living and create jobs. Raise taxes in New York City. You know how much people pay? Rich people, wealthy people, people who work for a living in New York City. They bear most of the burden now. I just looked it up. Between the state and the city, wealthy people, millionaires and billionaires, pay almost 15% tax. That means on top of the Fed, people are paying 55, 56, 57% of their income in taxes in New York. He's going to raise the corporate tax from 7.25 to 11.5. He says he's going to tax every corporation, whether they move out or not. This is the best thing that's happened to Palm Beach real estate brokers. They are already seeing a increase in business. The New York Post has a big story about all the people already looking to flee and people who are trying to sell getting no bidders because everyone is already trying to get out of New York. And it's not even just the insanity of taxing your way out of taxing people to pay for sex change surgery for children or free child care or free buses or free everything. Let's just tax the rich. He doesn't consider the economic ramifications. It just sounds good to the stupid people who support him. Yeah, let's just tax everyone who tax the billionaires like Bernie. They deal on emotion. They manipulate people. They can't actually explain how it would work. It wouldn't work, and everybody knows it. It's truly amazing. On top of that, this guy is such an ingrate. I mean, this is a guy who came to this country. He's been a citizen for 7 years. He's not eligible to run for Senate. He's an assemblyman who's now going to be mayor, and he hates this country. I mean, to show me any evidence that he loves America, he's another one of these Ilhan Omar types who come here. The country gives him everything. I mean, the guy, his parents are rich. He went to Bowdoin. He's never had a job, and he hates the country. He really does. He hates capitalism. And he encouraged people, he probably participated in it, to people for people that tear down statues in 2020 during the George Floyd riots when the whole country was on fire because a criminal in Minnesota OD'd on fentanyl and while resisting arrest because of that. He was encouraging people in 2020 to tear down statues. See if you throw that tweet up of him telling people that let's tear them down. He was a citizen for 2 years, and he was saying, let's tear down Christopher Columbus and Teddy Roosevelt. I mean, the level of ingratitude and entitlement is just off the charts. How do we get to this point? Here he is. In 2017, New York City ordered a review of public works constituting, quote, symbols of hate for potential removal. But a statue of Columbus remains in Astoria in defiance of the values of humanity, empathy, and justice. It has to go. And he circulates a petition to tear down Christopher Columbus. And again, he'd been a citizen for 2 years. He was here. He was in part of the riots, the protests, and one of the people who taken down our symbols that have been up there for decades or centuries. It's just incredible. I hate these people. I really hate these people. You come to this country and you have no intention of assimilating. You have no intention of respecting the values and principles of this country. You just want to tear it down, which is the most alarming part of this candidacy. Yes, we've seen what happened in London.
What happened? This is a hero.
What's that?
I said in this house, Christopher Columbus is a hero.
Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah, too bad Tony Soprano's not here to see this, but it's truly insane. I mean, I'll never forget in Boston, they took down a statue of Abraham Lincoln. That's what our former mayor, Marty Walsh, did, a profile in cowardice. The mob demanded he remove Abe Lincoln from the Boston Common, and he did it. That was a dark time, and it's because of people like this. They took advantage of this. They said, George Floyd died. Let's just rip this country apart, and that's what he did. And now he's in position to become mayor and turn New York into London or Paris or any of the other cities who've been overrun with Muslims from Africa or Asia who don't want to assimilate. They want to conquer. They want to subjugate you. And this could be the most disturbing story of the day. There's the statue. No longer do we have Abe Lincoln on the Common. We have this bizarre, obscene, I guess, statue of Martin Luther King's arm. I've been there. It is abomination. But get that clip about, we know what happens in these cities, European cities, when Muslims just dominate. They want their rules. They want Sharia law. They want women to cover their faces. They want no alcohol, no pork. That's a reality in parts of Paris and parts of London. They call them no-go zones, where the cops don't really want to go in there. Just let them settle it among themselves. It seems insane, but that is going to happen. That not going to happen. That is happening in New York City. It's actually happening in Brooklyn. This report is from OAN, got no coverage, no legs. This seems kind of important to me. Yes, we have those Muslim patrols, the morality police, making sure women aren't showing any skin. We have those in New York City. Check this out.
They're alarmed after seeing Muslim community patrols driving through their neighborhoods in what look like police squad cars. One America's Pearson Sharp has the details.
New Yorkers say they're shocked after seeing Muslim patrol cars roaming their neighborhoods like police squads. These Muslim community patrols just began operating in Brooklyn this year, with members dressed like police officers and driving cars identical to police squad cars. Even other Muslims have raised questions about the need for the patrols, with residents expressing fears this is just another form of Sharia law enforcement area. Others denounce residents for drinking, claiming this is a Muslim area and alcohol is not permitted.
That's incredible. They actually have cars, cruisers, which it says right on it, MP, Muslim Patrol, and they're dressed in police uniforms. I'm sorry, I thought it was illegal to a person, a police officer. I thought that was against the law. Why are we allowing that in Brooklyn? I know once Mamdani takes office, it'll be no turning back. But at this point, we're allowing Muslim patrols in our country. This is scary. This is frightening. What Joe Biden did, what the Democrats have done to this country is absolutely frightening. Just importing people who don't want to assimilate. They want to dominate. They want to install their people in high office. There's Muslim clerics now traveling the country, going to cities, trying to encourage people to run for office, take office like Mamdani, and then it all falls into place from there. The Muslim police patrolling Brooklyn, looking for people drinking alcohol or women not covering their heads in this country. Scary to think we've gotten to this point, but that's, what Joe Biden and the Democrats have wrought. They've imported millions of people who really don't like this country and want to change it. And now one of them is on the brink of running our biggest city. All right, we got so much to get to. I want to get to this. Get Jamal Bowman. This is just unbelievable. Jamal Bowman was a congressman. He's not anymore. He's most famous for pulling the fire alarm because he wanted to delay a vote. He's an absolute lunatic. He was too crazy, even for the Democrat Party in this day and age. He was a member of the squad. He was an absolute lunatic. He was always looking for a fight in the halls, yelling at other congressmen. Fortunately, he lost. He was defeated. He's out of office, but CNN will still put him on. And he's just as crazy as ever. But he said perhaps one of the most ridiculous things I think I've ever heard, even by CNN standards. He knows why there's a higher instance of diabetes and heart attacks and obesity among black men than white. He's got it. He nails it. Go ahead.
You can't be calm about this. I'm a black man in America. The reason why heart disease... I'm white, I can't comment. Listen to what I'm saying. The reason why heart disease and cancer and obesity and diabetes are bigger in the black community is because of the stress we carry from having to deal with being called the N-word directly or indirectly every day.
So there you go. The reason there's more obese black men than white men is because of the stress of being called the N-word. Now, I watched the segment. Nobody followed it up with the obvious question. Well, why don't you stop calling each other that? There's no white men calling Jamal Bowman the N-word. I'll bet it's never happened in his life. He's a young guy. There's no white people calling black people the N-word. It just doesn't happen. But there's lots of black people calling black men the N-word. So if you really think you're suffering under the stress of being called a racial slur, maybe you should stop calling each other that racial slur. Stop listening to rap and you won't hear the word. Talk about a deflection. And no, they didn't ask. And then he followed it up with a story about some white guy, bald white guy, saw him in the street and called him a piece of garbage or something. Completely made up, just made up like most race hoaxes. But that is so bizarre. That's the kind of person he's a leader in the community. We have utterly failed if that's one of the leaders telling young black men, yeah, it's not your fault you're obese or you have diabetes. It's the white guys who keep calling you the N-word. Okay, can you just give us one example of when a white guy called you that, Jamal, in your entire life? It didn't happen. It doesn't happen, which is good. But it sure does happen a lot among your peers. You know it, and you probably use it. In fact, I guarantee it. But, it's not your fault you're fat. Not your fault you have diabetes. All right, Jamal Bowman, thank God he's out at least. Thank God. But we sure do have a lot of lunatics still in Congress who probably agree with him on that. But we're going to get to this Bernie story. I think there's been many wonderful developments. Hell, this was a great week in Trump world. The stock market is up. The Iranian nuclear program is no more. The Supreme Court just ruled against district court judges just controlling the country. Bunch more rulings are coming down shortly, but I feel like we've almost reached the end of the climate insanity. I don't think too many people are buying into it anymore. I think it's over. It should be over. Again, it was just one big scam, as we learned through the USAID and other, and as Lee Zeldin has exposed at the EPA, it was just a way to move money around to well-connected Democrats and get rich. Didn't change the temperature of the world. We may be near the end, and I think this moment on Joe Rogan with Bernie Sanders could be a big step to just bringing an end to the whole scam. We'll get to that and more, but first.
Excuse me.
If you're still tossing and turning all night and feeling edgy during the day, let me tell you about CBD from CB Distillery. Millions have turned to CBD for relief because it works. In fact, over 90% of customers report better sleep with CBD, and it's not just sleep. CB Distillery offers targeted formulations for just about everything: sleep, stress, mood and focus, pain after exercise. That's a big one for me. They even have CBD for pets, and it's all made with the highest quality clean ingredients. No fillers, just premium CBD. I use the stick for my shoulder, works, and of course, the gummies help me sleep. They do indeed work. And with over 2 million satisfied customers and 100% money-back guarantee, CB Distillery is the source to trust. If you're struggling with sleep, stress, or other health concerns and haven't found relief, make the change, like millions have, to CBD from CB Distillery. And for a limited time, you can save 25% off your entire purchase. Visit CB Distillery and use promo code Callahan. That's cbdistillery.com, promo code Callahan, cbdistillery.com. You know, nothing wakes you up like losing a loved one. I know, I've been there a little too often recently. You think, what about me? You do a lot of soul searching and you wonder, will my family be prepared financially if something were to happen to me? The last thing you want is your family to worry about how they're going to pay the bills. With life insurance from Ethos, your family is protected. I know it's not a pleasant thought, but you know what's worse? Wondering, will my family be able to stay in the house? Will my kids be able to go to college? Will my wife be able to pay the bills? Life insurance from Ethos gives you peace of mind. I know it did for me. It's one big bucket list thing you get to cross off. I know traditional life insurance can be complicated, but Ethos isn't. Ethos makes it easy. So protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Newsmax. That's ethos.com/Newsmax. All right, before we get to the end of climate change, the end of the scam, I forgot this one item. I want to do this with Mamdani. Get this. It's like a policy position release from Mamdani. It's hard to believe it's real, but you know he has a plan, of course, tax the rich and all that. Everything's about taxing the rich and redistributing the wealth. He doesn't want to just tax the rich. He wants to tax the whites. This is your next mayor. This is amazing. And we saw the big celebration from his headquarters after the win over Cuomo on Tuesday. Almost everyone was white. He won whites overwhelmingly. He didn't win Hispanic or black vote. He won the white vote, the rich white liberals. This is what they're voting for. This is an actual bullet point item on Zoran for New York City, telling you what he's going to do. He promises to, quote, shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. He says it out loud. That's his official press release. We're going to shift the tax burden to whiter neighborhoods. Imagine that in reverse. I mean, it would never happen. But he knows that he can say this and he can get away with it, and he'll still get the votes of all these idiot college. You know, he won the college educated. You know, the dumbest people in New York, the college educated, all the people who went to Barnard and Columbia are out there supporting him, and he's going to shift the tax burden to whiter neighborhoods. Why do you even have to put that in there? Why don't you just say more affluent neighborhoods? Whiter? Someone's there trying to determine which neighborhoods are whiter? and we'll make them pay more. And people voted for that. All right. But let's get to my favorite story of the day, because I am so sick of the climate change scam. As I've said many times, the people yelling the loudest about climate change are the dumbest people in our society. They don't ever make a case. They don't know what they're talking about. They just say, oh, it's hot out. It's climate change. It's hot out. Let's all, drive. Let's get electric school buses. Let's all get solar panels. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand. They don't care. It's just virtue signaling at its most obvious. That's what it is. And again, look at the people yelling the loudest. It's AOC and Ed Markey and Jalapal, or whatever her name is. People who are just dumb, and they think it makes them sound virtuous to say, oh, we have to do something about the climate. They know they don't understand it. You think Bernie Sanders could explain in any way, even the most rudimentary terms, what exactly is happening to the climate? Of course not. It just makes them sound virtuous. And if you dare question it, you're a knuckle-dragging Neanderthal. But the people questioning climate change, they're the smart ones. They know how insane and foolish it is. And now I think Joe Rogan, he's coming around because he's smart and he reads. Hell, he read the Washington Post, which has a story pointing out that we're in a cooling period. We're not in, the world's not going to end in 5 years, despite what John Kerry or Ed Markey tells you. And this moment, I think, was significant. Check it out.
You got to deal with this climate change issue. And I know that, there are some people who think climate change is a hoax. It ain't a hoax. I think the last 10 years have been the warmest on record.
I think the climate change issue is very complicated. And I think, did you see the Washington Post piece that they wrote, where they did this long-term view? First of all, the reality is that the Earth's temperature has never been static, right? We both agree on that. It's always been up and down. There's been ice ages and heat waves. And then the Washington Post looked at it. What was the time period that they looked at? That essentially they found that we're in a cooling period. And this was like a very inconvenient discovery, but they had to report the data, and kudos to them for doing that. Scientists have captured the Earth's climate change over the last 485 million years. Here's a surprising place we stand now. So look at the far end of that graph, and you see we're in a cooling period.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't read that article, but
yeah.
The scientists who are out there, I think.
I know, but there's a lot of money involved in that too, Bernie. That's part of the problem. There's a lot of money involved in this whole climate change emergency issue, and there's a lot of control, and that's a big part of this problem.
Yeah, I didn't read the article, but what scientists say, that's the substance of the climate crazies. That's what they do. They say, scientists are all have a financial stake in this, as Rogan points out. And the Washington Post, I believe the term, the period he's looking at, it's like 480 million years they looked at and said we're in a cooling period. So there is no climate change. The hoax is over. And Bernie says, well, I didn't read the article, but it's real. They can't back up the argument. Put up the tweet from Jamapal. I can never get her name. Congresswoman from Seattle, Pramila Jalapal. And this is what you get. This is a sitting congresswoman who just puts up a map with temperatures, high temperatures, and says, this is climate change. That's it. She says, look at it's hot. It's 73 in Minneapolis. It's 69 in Bismarck. It's 94 in Tampa and 92 in San Antonio. It's 103 in Phoenix. That's not climate change. That's summer. That's what that is. But that's a congresswoman says, this is climate change. And you know what we have to do about that? We have to spend trillions because we have to make the world cooler. It's just absurd on its face. And I hope, I pray we're done with it. At least it feels that way. Certainly, with Trump in office and Biden gone, and Greta has moved on to hating the Jews and sailing to Gaza. I think, and Kerry's like, he's done. He's irrelevant. So most of the climate crazies are kind of off the stage, which is a good thing. All right, before we go, I just want to do this LA Times thing. This is remarkable. I I spent a lot of time mocking the media, but God, do they deserve it? There is no journalism. They don't exist anymore. The LA Times used to be a great paper. I lived in Massachusetts. I used to subscribe to the LA Times because they had such good writers, mostly sports writers, but it was a good paper. My mailman hated me, especially on Tuesday when I got the Sunday paper. But I would get it every day and read it. It was a good paper. It is now a joke, just like the New York Times and Washington Post. Trump has broken them. He's broken a lot of people, but he's broken mainstream media. Here's a reporter from the LA Times on the LA Times website giving hints and tips for people on how to avoid ICE, how to avoid federal law enforcement. If this was some crazy left-wing outfit, I'd say, yeah, that's what they do. This is a major metropolitan newspaper telling people, mostly moms with nannies, on how to avoid ICE. This is amazing. Go ahead.
Do you have a nanny or other household worker? You might be unsure how to help them right now as the ICE raids continue across LA. There's a lot of fear and uncertainty right now. So we spoke to domestic employer nonprofit Handinand to get you some answers. First off, know your rights. Remember that ICE cannot enter your home without a warrant signed by a judge unless you give them permission. And make sure your employees know their rights too. They have a right to remain silent and contact an attorney. Limit risk where you can. A lot of nannies are taking a big risk by going to work right now. Consider offering them paid leave. And if you can't, you might offer to accompany them to a bus stop or pay for a taxi to help them get to work safely. And don't forget, domestic workers are entitled to 5 days of paid sick leave. Be flexible. A nanny might not feel comfortable taking their usual trips to the park or the library with your child. Talk to them about what they need to feel safe. Start the conversation. Nannies might not feel comfortable asking for what they need, so don't be afraid to ask. If you don't know your nanny status, don't ask for it. But don't be afraid to tell them how you feel about what's unfolding. That may give them the confidence to confide in you later. Learn more about how childcare workers are faring amid the ICE raids at latimes.com.
So you can go to latimes.com, their official website, and learn how to evade law enforcement. Why don't they do that for, like, drug dealers and bank robbers? You want to avoid law enforcement? Here's some helpful hints. And what she's doing is protecting, their slave labor. These people, she's talking about people working under the table. The employers, the employees, employers are violating the law, and the LA Times is there to help you avoid law enforcement. All right. I could do this all day. We're waiting a Trump press conference so we can take a victory lap because he had a big win in the Supreme Court. He may have more wins to come, but do we have any good comments? I promised, so I got to.
There was a few this time. I'll have to give it to him.
Oh, we got a lot there, and I got to wrap this up. It's such a good week, such a good day. I'm having so much fun. Gail says, my parents had dementia. It's terrible. I would never have put my parents through this. I agree. I've been there too. It's the last thing you would want to do, but Dr. Jill is just an evil, awful woman. Seeing the Dems' behavior now, Biden just might have been the smartest of them, even in his mental decline. Yes, they've not recovered well from the Biden cover-up. Lou says, good boy, baby. You did good. You get ice cream and a new diaper. That's how it felt. That was the most demeaning moment of Biden's presidency. Mamdani wants to drive all the white people out of New York. Could be. I mean, he's going to. He already is. You'll see the stories. The New York Post has a big story on how the realtors are already overwhelmed. People trying to get out of New York. Lonnie says, obesity and diabetes is because of what? Sure, it has nothing to do with your poor eating habits. Yeah, no, it's not your fault. It's all those evil white people, all those imaginary white people calling you the N-word. Pathetic, evil woman protecting all their illegal money while he stands there with his brain eaten up with all his evil deeds, says Carol. True. Yeah, she not only loved the power, she must be miserable right now, Jill Biden. She must be poking him with a stick. Say, we got to get out in the speaking circuit. We got to get out and make some money. And he's just not capable of it anymore. It's actually kind of sad. That would be the end of the Biden nightmare. We're done with it. But all right, we're done with this too. Man, I could have gone for quite a while. But what a week. What a great week. What a year. Happy June 27th. One of the most significant days in American history. It was wild and it changed. I mean, that night, 1 year ago tonight, changed the course of history for the better. Thank God that Joe Biden had a cold and a stutter. All right, I will leave it there for today and for this week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm Gerry Callahan. This is The Callahan Show, and we'll do it again Monday morning.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do?